was a story about an event in the Civil War, specifically a man named Joshua Chamberlain, Colonel Joshua Chamberlain. And it was July 2nd, 1863, on a hot, humid day, just south of Gettysburg, where General Meade, the Union Army, asked Colonel Chamberlain to protect a high point in the ground that was actually the back of the Union's defenses. So he was entrusted with protecting this with his men. Colonel Chamberlain had actually started in Maine. His regiment was called the 21st Maine, with 1,000 men. And on July 2nd, he was down to 300 men. His troops were going to protect this space, and General Lee told them, you cannot retreat, because if the South reaches that spot, they'd be able to charge down and behind the Union forces, and they'd be completely unprotected. Chamberlain's men built a stone wall, about 110 yards long, to give them protection from the South. The South would need to charge up this hill to get to them. And as it turned out, the day started with one wave after another. They weathered the first wave, the second wave came, then the third wave started. And they were holding their positions and repelling the South. Finally, on the fourth wave, Colonel Chamberlain actually got shot in his belt buckle, managed to be able to keep fighting, and the battle raged on. When the fifth wave began, the South actually managed to breach the wall, and they were fighting on both sides of the wall. Chamberlain's men were unable to reload their weapons, so they were swinging their rifles. They were fighting by hand. And they eventually managed to push the rebels back and repel them one more time. At this point, Chamberlain actually assessed his position and asked his lieutenants and sergeants where they stood. Some soldiers had 1 or 2 rounds left. Most had none. They had dropped from 300 men down to 80. They had a lookout, a 12-year-old boy in a tree, and he called out to Colonel Chamberlain. He said, they're reforming, and they've got large reinforcements. Chamberlain was determined not to die by a bullet in his back. He would not retreat. So he climbed up on the wall, and as he was doing this, the boy yelled out, they're coming. And the forces down below were starting their charge up the hill, yelling. And he stood with his arms folded and looked down at them, thinking, what am I going to do? I cannot retreat. And his sergeants and lieutenants had already agreed that there was no way they could hold the ground. So he turned to his lieutenant and said, we're going to charge. Tell the men to fix their bayonets, and that's what we'll do. So he hopped down from the wall, walked among his men, and explained what they were going to do. Full charge. Meanwhile, the officers of the South were down below, and when they saw this commander stand up on the wall and stare down at them with their arms folded, they paused. While their forces were starting up the hill, they were reassessing what was going on. And finally, Chamberlain jumped up on the wall, pulled out his sword, and yelled, charge, started down the hill, and his ragtag group of 80 men stumbled over the wall and followed him, yelling, charge. At this point, the commanders of the South could not conceive that the ragtag group left that they had been battling was the same group coming down the hill, and decided this must be reinforcements, must be an entirely new force that is so well equipped that they're prepared to actually charge. Within 10 minutes, the captain of the Southern forces, first of all, they turned and started to run and retreat, dropping loaded weapons so that they could run even faster. And within 10 minutes, Chamberlain's men had actually captured their captain, and he surrendered to Chamberlain. They had 400 rebel captured by 80 men with no ammunition. And as it turns out, when historians look back at this point in time, if Chamberlain had not made that charge, that battle would have been lost to the South. And if the South had won the Battle of Gettysburg, it's also been determined that they would have won the Civil War. So that would have left the country divided. It's the way most people think. But in fact, historians also point out that unlikely that there would have been a North and a South. More probably there would have been 9 to 13 sovereignties that covered the continent that you might call the U.S. And if you think about that, it would have been much like Europe. Come the 1930s, when Hitler swept across Europe, it would not have been the United States to actually fill the breach and solve that problem. Nor would there have been a force big enough to be able to fight the Japanese in the Pacific, to be able to manage to muster the resources to fight two enemies on two different fronts. So, going back to Mr. Chamberlain, that one act of charging down the hill very well changed a broad sweep of our history as we know it. So, action, and in the words of Mark Twain, says that action speaks louder than words, but not often. Looking back at someone who was actually visionary and helped change history as well, Winston Churchill always said, I never worry about action, I always worry about inaction. So, if you're ever in doubt about what to do, if you're ever left with a situation that leaves you pausing, the best course of